We are getting some breaking news in the investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie.
There are some puzzling new developments tonight in the ongoing search for Nancy Guthrie.
Today we are going deeper into the pacemaker data than most coverage has even attempted. Not just what the device recorded, but what those recordings actually mean when you line them up against the timeline everyone's been trying to understand. We're breaking down what these devices truly log, how federal forensic teams interpret that information, and what the exact timestamps reveal about the 41-minute gap between 1:47 and 2:28 in the morning. And more importantly, what the decoded data suggests happened to Nancy Guthrie during that window. This is the moment people have been waiting for. Day 70. Stay with me, because the details matter here more than anywhere else in this case. Before we even touch the raw timeline, there's one critical misunderstanding that needs to be corrected. From the beginning, a lot of reports claimed the pacemaker stopped at 2:28 a.m., and that must be when everything ended. That assumption shaped how people saw the entire timeline. But it's wrong. What actually stopped at 2:28 wasn't the device itself. It was the connection. The pacemaker lost communication with its paired system, most likely a home monitoring unit or synced app. That doesn't mean her heart stopped. It doesn't mean the device failed. It simply means the signal link was broken. That distinction changes everything, because even after that connection ended, the pacemaker itself kept working. It kept recording internally. Every heartbeat, every irregular rhythm, every spike or drop stayed logged inside the device. And that internal record is what investigators have been working to reconstruct through synced and cloud-transmitted data. Accessing that information is not simple. This isn't like pulling a file off a phone. It requires manufacturer-specific systems, medical expertise, and strict forensic handling to preserve its evidentiary value. This process alone explains why it has taken weeks to build a clear picture. Now, let's talk about the 41 minutes. At 1:47 a.m., the front camera is disabled. That's confirmed. A figure approaches, interferes with the device, and from that point forward, external visibility is gone. At 2:28 a.m., the pacemaker loses sync. Between those 2 points, there is no camera footage, no phone data, no witness confirmation. From the outside, it's silence. But internally, the pacemaker was still recording. And when that data is analyzed, it doesn't show silence at all. It shows a sequence. Earlier in the night, everything looks normal. Her heart rate is stable, consistent with a calm evening. After returning home, there's a brief increase later in the night. Small, short-lived, the kind of spike you might see from a minor disturbance. Nothing definitive on its own, but around the same time the camera is disabled, the data shifts sharply. There is a sudden, significant rise in heart rate. Not gradual, not subtle, it's immediate and intense, consistent with an acute stress response, the kind triggered by fear or a sudden threat, and the timing aligns directly with the moment external surveillance goes dark. That's not a coincidence. From that point forward, the heart rate doesn't just spike and settle, it stays elevated, sustained. This is important because it tells investigators that whatever triggered that initial response didn't end quickly. It continued. Now, for several minutes, the pattern shows heightened stress with irregular rhythm changes. Not dangerous in a clinical sense, but consistent with emotional distress under pressure. Then the data enters a different phase. About 15 to 20 minutes into that window, movement patterns begin to show up. Modern pacemakers can detect motion through internal sensors, and the data here doesn't match someone calmly walking around. It doesn't match stillness either. It matches passive movement. In simple terms, it suggests she was being moved, not moving herself. That distinction matters, because voluntary motion and being transported produce different patterns, and this pattern leans strongly toward external movement, being carried or placed into something moving. Then comes the final phase. In the last portion of the 41 minutes, while the heart activity begins to change again, the elevated rate starts to shift into a more controlled pattern, but not a return to normal. Instead, the variability between beats begins to decrease. That's a key signal. Reduced variability in this context is often associated with lowered consciousness. Not cardiac failure, not death, but a system that is no longer responding normally to external stimuli. In other words, something changed her physiological state. By the time the sync stops at 2:28, the data suggests she is no longer in the same condition she was at 1:47. The heart is still active, the device is still functioning, but the pattern is consistent with someone who is no longer fully conscious. And that leads to the question investigators have been careful about: sedation. The data pattern in those final minutes aligns with what specialists describe as pharmacological sedation. That doesn't confirm exactly what was used or how, but it strongly suggests an external influence that reduced awareness. And if that interpretation is accurate, it carries serious implications. It means preparation, it means planning, it means this wasn't random or impulsive, because substances that produce that kind of effect aren't accidental. They're brought, carried, and used intentionally. It also means that at 2:28 a.m., she was almost certainly alive. The pacemaker does not show signs of cardiac arrest. It does not show shutdown. It shows continued function under altered conditions. So when claims appear later saying she was already dead at that point, they don't match the data. That doesn't answer what happened after 2:28. That part remains locked inside the device itself, but it does establish the last known physiological state: alive, but not fully conscious. Now, another question people keep asking is whether the pacemaker can reveal location. The answer is no, not directly. These devices don't have GPS. They don't map coordinates, but they do record movement patterns, and those patterns can still provide clues. The data suggests sustained movement beginning midway through that 41-minute window. The duration of that movement aligns with roughly 15 to 20 minutes of transport before the signal was lost. That creates a radius, not a pinpoint location, but a zone based on distance and time. Investigators use that kind of constraint to narrow search areas and focus resources. It's not precise, but it's not nothing either. Finally, there's something important about the signal itself. Pacemakers emit low-power signals when near compatible devices. Investigators can attempt to detect those signals, but the range is extremely limited, only a few meters. That means searches have to be targeted, not broad. And that's why narrowing the area matters so much, because without that focus, detection becomes nearly impossible. So when you step back and look at the full picture, the pacemaker data does something no other evidence in this case can do. It reconstructs a sequence: a sudden disturbance, a sustained period of fear, a transition into forced movement, and a final shift into reduced consciousness. No guesses, no assumptions, just the body's response recorded in real time. And that's why this data matters. Because even without cameras, even without witnesses, even without a direct account, the timeline is still there, written in every beat.